Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I was inspired to do by Little Book Owl. She is doing Beta, which is a video every day in April, and one of the suggestions that she got was tips and tricks on how to read manga, and I really liked that idea and I really want to give some of my tips and tricks on how to read manga because manga is quite a bit of my reading. I really enjoy it. I enjoy most of it, like I enjoy manga, light novels, comic books. I love devouring all that as well, so I thought these tips and tricks would come in handy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the physical aspects of the manga, and then I'm going to go into just general tips and tricks on reading it. Manga can come in many forms, but there are three general types. There is the single volume, which contains probably about 6 chapters, and they are single volume. They come in different sizes. This is a bigger size. And then there's this one, which is, I think, like most manga are sized like this, and you can see it's just a little bit shorter. Gangsta is really good. I'd highly recommend it. But these are the single volumes. Then you've got series that are really long. They have 3-in-1 volumes, which this is Full Metal Alchemist, and I'll talk more about this series later. As you can see, these are volumes 1, 2, and 3, and these just combine all the volumes into 3-in-1, so you'll have 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so on. These are really good space savers, but not all manga comes in 3-in-1 volumes. Like, I have a series that's really old called Mars, which I have all 15 volumes, but most popular series can have 3-in-1 volumes if you really look for them. So this is one of my favourite series. And finally, the other one is complete collections, whereas there might be 1, 2, or 3 volumes where all the chapters are just included in this big binder, and they'll have like 2 or 3 of them. And this is Orange Collection 1. I believe that there's another collection which I have to get because this was actually quite... Now, as for reading manga in the physical volumes, every physical volume comes with this guide here, because instead of reading left to right like you would a book, you read right to left. So you'll be reading that way instead of this way, which is what normally happens. And on the back here, when you try to read it this way, there is a thing that tells you that you're reading it the wrong way and shows you how to read manga, because it's a bit of an adjustment. I know when I started out, I kept reading left to right, and it took a bit for my eyes to get adjusted to read this way, because you naturally want to read the way that you've always read. But once you get used to it, it's simply a matter of switching directions. And many online hosts that do manga scans online, they will put it right to left, and there will be like a thing at the beginning that says this is how you read it before you go. Because I know when I read Mars for the first time, I think it was Manga Fox, they had that like guide on how to read it. Crunchyroll, I don't believe does it, but I have had experience with their manga service, and their manga service is really good. So that's it for the physical side of things. So now I'm going to get into sort of my tips on reading manga. So first off, if you're starting out, I would suggest going for genres that you personally like reading in other books. So for me, I like historical fiction. I will only read contemporary in this form. It's just one of my things, because some of the contemporary stuff is really good. Fantasy, romance, any genre you can think of, there is a manga out there for you. And I would highly recommend starting off with a 7-volume to 15-volume series, as the shorter series allows you to really see if you really want to get into this, because there are a lot of series out there that are still ongoing, and it's a huge commitment. I believe that having like a shorter series will help you get used to things, and you can move on to a longer series. I believe that Orange High School Host Club, which is the volume I showed you before, this has 15 volumes. Full Metal Alchemist has 29, I believe, 24 or 29. Not sure, but this is a bit longer series. The series that are up there on my shelf at the moment, Gangsta, currently only has 9 volumes out, but it's an ongoing series, but we're waiting for the next volume to be released. Mars has 15, but there are series like One Piece or Naruto that have many volumes to it, and I believe it's starting off with a simple series helps you dive into bigger series. This one is a romance series. This one is a historical fantasy series. Gangster is a crime series. It's all, like, anything you can imagine, there's something out there for it, and I would highly suggest these three. Orange is quite good too, but yeah, so starting from a small series, then moving on to larger ones as you progress is a good way to go. And another good tip is to pace yourself through the manga, because especially if it's a dialogue heavy one like Emma, which is the historical manga I mentioned earlier, it's very dialogue heavy and I have to pace myself through the chapters, otherwise my brain kind of gets burnt out. So pace yourself through the longer ones, because the longer ones, while fantastic, there is a lot there and there is a lot to digest and take in. So be sure to pace yourself when reading them, because while they can go far like that, reading 17 volumes in one night can really take it out of you. Another one that I want to mention very quickly is watching the anime first, if there is an anime adaptation of it. This one I think is helpful if the dialogue is, if it's heavy dialogue, or if there's a lot of fast dialogue. Because I know that when I watched Orange High School Host Club originally, because I watched it before I read it, it's very fast-paced dialogue. And seeing that on the page compared to the screen, I think watching it on the screen helped me sort of go into the manga with a preparedness. Because, like, the manga itself, there is a lot of speech bubbles and everything, and it's very fast-paced. Like, it's kind of very much fast-paced, very much dialogue, and I think watching the anime helped me with that. Now that I've just gotten a few tips and just other helpful things, I'm going to recommend some starting manga, because I think it's important to recommend some titles that might interest people. For contemporary readers, I'd highly recommend A Silent Voice, which is a 7-volume manga series about a guy who was a bully in his childhood, and when him and his particular victim reunite in high school, he tries to atone for bullying her because she was deaf and, like, ripping out her hearing aids and stuff like that. And it's a really sweet story. It has a lot of drama to it, but it's really sweet, and it's a nice, simple story for 7 volumes. For, like, a crime thing, I would highly recommend Gangster. At time of recording, we only have 8 volumes out, but the story is really good. It's about these 2 guys called Nick and Warwick, and they are the handymen, which are the men that clean up the messes that the mob bosses don't want to deal with and the cops don't want to know about. And it's all about them taking on a new person called Alex, who is a former sex worker who comes into contact with Nick and Warwick when they kill her old pimp. And then she works as a secretary for the handyman in their apartment, and it's really so good. This volume that I'm holding up is Gangster Cursed, which is the backstory to one of my favourite characters called Marco, and I really love it, and just it's so good. And they've only got 3 volumes out of this, so I'm waiting for the 4th one to come out soon. This story is really good and really intense. Orange High School Host Club, for the romantic in you. It's 15 volumes long. It really encompasses romance, and it's a really good series. It's about this girl who disguises herself as a boy to pay off a debt when she breaks a $80 million vase that was meant to be sold at auction from the Orange High School's host club. And so in order to pay off her debt, she must work as a host to get 1,000 people to request her service, and the debt is paid for. This is a really nice series and I really love it. It's really funny too, and I would highly recommend the anime of this as well. I've only read volume 1 because I'm waiting to get volumes 2 and 3 and 4. And then I will continue on with this series. Full Metal Alchemist, which I mentioned is like a 30-volume series, is a good series to start off with because it's easy to digest and the story is so great. It's easy to get into. It follows the 2 adventures of 2 brothers Edward, who is the Full Metal Alchemist, who has an automail arm and leg, and his brother, which is a full suit of armor. I'm not going to say more than that because that'd be spoiling it, but this is a very, very fun series. It's got a lot of drama in it as well, and it talks about a lot of topics very seriously, and I love it so much. And the other two that I'm going to recommend, which is Emma, which is a historical fiction series based around the romance between a member of the gentry and a maid called Emma. So William and Emma, and it's perfection. It's 15, no, it's not 15, it's 7 or 8 volumes long, and it's just sweet, slow burn romance, and I love it so much. And finally, the last one I'm going to recommend is Mars, which is a 15-volume series about two people who are both damaged, but through each other they found a way to not heal each other, but just get better. And it's all about their struggle confronting both demons and past trauma, and it's so good, and I would highly recommend that. It is out of print, but you can find it online. I believe Manga has it all in line. And I would also, just because I love Supernatural, would recommend Fruits Basket, which is a story about a girl who lives in a tent and one day stumbles across a house where her classmate Yuki is living, and she comes to know the Soma family secret that when they are hugged by the members of the opposite sex, they are turned into the 12 animals of the zodiac plus a cat, and hilarity ensues. It's so fun, it's so good, it's so sweet, and I love them all. And lastly, as I mentioned, you can not only buy the physical volumes, which I highly recommend because having them in your hands, and especially with my eyes, I don't like straining my eyes too much on a screen. So physical volumes are the way for me to go. But you can read on Manga. There is, as I mentioned before, there's a service called Crunchyroll, which is primarily an anime streaming site, but they do have a very good manga selection available. And one that I would also highly recommend, which you can get as an app on your phone, is called Bookwalker. And I have read 2 light novels from Bookwalker, but they also have a ton of manga, and it's an online site where you can buy ebooks of the manga and you can read them on your phone or tablet or computer or whatever you want. So yeah, that's my video for tips and tricks on reading manga and starting your journey. I hope you find this helpful, and if you have any other tips and tricks about reading manga, leave them in that comment section down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.